Welcome back. It's your boy Fresh.
And I'm Mary, and today we are going to be reviewing a game that if you decide that you want to play a video game without actually having to use your system.
Cities Skylines.
Yes.
You messed up the intro.
I'm going to start over. I forgot what it was. You only said it to me once.
If you ever want to play a video game and then your power goes out, what do? Cities Skylines. See, that's solid.
Alright, can I start over?
No, go ahead. I'll fix it in editing. Or just leave it all in.
Cities and Skylines, or
No.
Cities Skylines. Alright, let's start over. Cities Skylines is a game released by...
Cities.
I said cities.
You said Cities.
I said cities. You're being horrible.
Go ahead.
Cities Skylines is a game that was released by Cosmos, and it was designed by Rustan Hakanson. I hope I'm pronouncing his name right. I'm not exactly
We're
sure.
from the Midwest.
Yeah, and he's got to be German or Dutch or something. It takes 1 to 4 players to play, and it's ages 10 and up. It takes approximately 40 to 7 minutes to play.
Yeah, so this is a cooperative city building game. I think this is actually the first city building game we've had an opportunity of playing. I guess unless you called Chinatown, it's kind of city building a little bit.
A little bit, but Chinatown is a trading game.
Yeah.
So this one is based off of the video game Cities Skylines, and which actually kind of surprised me because when he first introduced it to me, I'd never heard of the video game, but it reminded me of SimCity.
Right.
Instead.
Yeah, Cities Skylines, the video game, is on Steam and PS4. I haven't had an opportunity to play that yet, but we have played a ton of SimCity, so we were pretty familiar with the gameplay style. So basically what you're trying to do is you're building a city, setting zones, whether it be commercial, industrial, or residential. You've got utility buildings like water treatment plants, coal power plants, and landfills to handle excess trash. Then you have
And water towers.
yeah.
Water towers for water.
And then you got service buildings like police and fire, schools, and all sorts of different service buildings that certain zones will want to be near. And so basically you're balancing your money versus service buildings versus keeping your pollution, crime, employment all in check while growing a city and boosting the overall happiness. This game doesn't have a win scenario. It's how many points you can score. So it kind of harkens back to old Atari games where it wasn't really an end. You just try to get a high score. I'm not sure if the video game is like that. I don't even know if does SimCity ever end? I think you just go on forever trying to build the highest population as you can.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever seen a game end screen on SimCity.
I mean, usually we just built up a city and then had Godzilla come and destroy it for us.
That's true.
So
I think that's what everyone does in SimCity. Build it up and then just destroy it with all the disasters. Now, there is no disasters in this. It is a little more realistic than that. I guess disasters are a natural part of life.
you have there's a news edition where you get...
Yeah, that's sort of like a bad press. And we'll
bad
kind of get to that a little bit when we get into components. One thing I did like about this game is in the rule book, they sort of have you add the aspects of the game piece by piece. So like the first game has nothing special. Second game, you add the unique buildings, which is like a courthouse, a football stadium, the Fountain of Life and Death. You know, I guess it does get a little fantasy in that. Then you add these special characters that each player will play as, which gives them a unique ability, so you get individual player powers. Then you add
Policies?
Policies, so that's sort of like a government, political policies there. And then you get news, so you're trying to compete against bad press, like, oh, every time crime rises, you know, the papers talk about it, so people become less happy overall. Happiness. And again, that's how you win, is just building the highest score you can with happiness.
Yep.
Again, it's cooperative. You're supposed to agree on every decision, and if you don't agree, then whoever's turn it actually is gets the final word. Again, we played this 2 players only. I don't really think player count would matter. So, some games I'm really strong that you probably need 3 or 4. This one, I think playing it solo or playing it with 4 people.
Yeah. I think it would still be fun even playing it solo. So this would be a good game. This would be a really good solo game if people are looking for a solo game. I think.
Yeah, or one that you play with your wife or friends.
Yeah.
I don't think
it's good
player
cooperative
count.
and it's good solo as well, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So. Scoring?
Yes, I guess we'll go ahead and just jump right into the report card. It's a pretty straightforward game, so there's not a ton to talk about. And once we get into the component section, I think a little more of this will become a little clearer. We'll put that towards the end of the video. So we'll go ahead and go straight to report card.
Okay. Gameplay.
This was a fun game. If you're a fan of SimCity or other city building games, this one slides right in, scratches that itch. Mm-hmm. So I would say gameplay, I think I'm going to go with an 8. What are you?
I'm going to go with an 8.5.
8.5.
Just slightly above. I really liked the gameplay on this. I thought it was really fun. They like to add in different levels of complexity while also not being too complex. Mm-hmm. And I really like that it's a game that progresses at whatever pace that you want it to progress at. So, and you can kind of you go at your own pace, but then also you can go for as long as you want. So if you want to be a short game, you can end the game, end the milestones, move forward, and have a quick game. If you really want to build on it and get more strategic with it, you can play around with that, make a much longer game, try and build a bigger city. That doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to have more happiness and have a better city, but you can just try different scenarios in that sense. So I really liked that a lot about it.
Try to fill up every single square inch of the boards. Mm-hmm. That's one thing we kind of forgot to mention. And she brought it up. So they got these things called milestones. So basically every tile of the city starts face down, and they're big city tiles. And then so you'll pay X amount of dollars, flip that, and then you can start building on it. So I guess it's sort of like the city or the government is buying property and then growing onto that. So each time you end a milestone, you bank your happiness. And there are certain modifiers to adjust that, and we'll get into that again with components. Things like being short on water, short on electricity, have too much trash. Those will bring down your happiness, but then you have an opportunity to bank all your happiness, open up more space to build on, and then continue the game there.
And you do have, it is possible to be forced to stop the game in certain situations.
Yes. Yeah, I missed that one too. I'm on vacation, so apparently I'm on vacation at work and from this.
Well, because we did run into a situation where we were given the cards that we had and we couldn't play any of the cards that we had based on where our like pollution levels and crime levels and stuff were like that. We couldn't raise them anymore, so there were no cards that we could play. We didn't have any money left in the bank because the game allows you to pay money to trade cards.
Right.
Because we didn't have any money in the bank to trade any cards or buy new cards or to buy any of the specific features in our hands. We actually had to stop the game at that point. That doesn't mean that you lose, but
No,
you're
we
forced to stop.
It's called failed city.
It's a fail. But I thought you were still able to bank how much happiness you had in your city and still.
You're done.
No.
So you can't win, you can lose. And it's pretty tough. I mean, we kind of got into a bad spot with just not hitting the right buildings. We couldn't find a police station for anything, and it just kind of spiraled out of control. So you can lose. You can't win. You just set a high score.
Okay. That makes sense.
So we lost.
We lost.
All right. Next section.
Story theme.
Okay. Again, this game has no story. I feel like we've said that a lot during our reviews. Maybe we need to grab a.
But it does have a theme. I mean, it's a city
It
building
does
theme.
does have a theme.
And that is very, very strong, I think, with it. I mean, like, they really hold to it. They have all the different components that you would think of when you're building a city. You know, the crime, pollution, traffic, electricity, water, trash, happiness, employment.
Mm-hmm. So what do you grade it for theme?
Go with a 7.
7. I'm way higher on you with themes. I'm a 10. It felt like, again, harkening to your point, it felt like I was building a city, and each element they add, you don't want the press to give you bad press and lower people's happiness, so you're trying to appease the press, you're trying to appease the people, you're trying to appease the other players, so you're coming together. So that's sort of like, if you want to call it political parties, that we're different political parties, and we got to see eye to eye on things, and we're constantly going. It felt like building a city in a box, and that was great. I love the theme. It felt like.
I really enjoyed the theme. I would say the reason I probably gave it a slightly lower score on the theme was some of the cards. I had a really hard time actually relating them into like the theme. So why is it that this card plays on a medical center and then causes happiness to go down and yet crime to go up? Some of the ones it's like it would make sense maybe that crime would go up with that specific building that you're building, but then other ones it didn't always make sense to me.
I guess how I viewed it in my head is the neighborhoods that cause traffic to go up. A lot of people have cars. It's a car-heavy place, or
That's
tall
true.
buildings, lots of people, lots of cars. The residential zones that cause crime to go up, maybe that's a poorer community, so on and so forth. So I kind of got it, but I do see your point that sometimes
I loved it though. I still really loved the theme. I guess maybe in hindsight I'd probably give it a higher score. But
well, we haven't published it. You can ask Future Doug to change your vote.
by future, will you change my vote?
Go ahead and give him the new number.
I would give it a 9.
I don't think he's going to change it. All right. So the next one, components.
Okay.
So the components are, well, I guess we'll cut in the component section. So we'll go ahead and give our grade, then we'll cut in the parts. So Future Doug, you don't have to put in her thing, but I will need you to insert the component video. You're looking awfully handsome, Future Doug. Like a haircut, by the way. Okay, so here we are with the game boards. This is sort of a basic setup with how you can lay it out. And this isn't the only way to lay it out. You could also slide around. So this is over here. You can design the city any way you want. I only have 3 of the 6 board pieces out just for this little demonstration. But basically, to start the game, you were going to pay a fee to turn over one of these milestones. So let's just say you want to start with C. It would cost you 3 money. And you take this, flip it longitudinally, so that way the water stays in the same spot. And then you see that it has this grid pattern and these roads sort of shape it a little bit. So this kind of gives you the Tetris vibe, where you need to fit in the game pieces onto this board while not crossing into roads, crossing into water, or overlapping off the board. Here are the cards. So they're 1, 2s, and 3s. 1s are the cheapest, but also don't provide. Oh, I gotta zoom out. Oh, got a little bit of glare there. 1s, 2s, and 3s. 1s are the cheapest, but they provide the smallest benefit. So this one is a small landfill site, costs $3 and gets rid of 3 trash. So basically in that case I would pay $3, move my trash, plus 3. So it's not really trash, it's I guess space to handle trash, and I would add a landfill anywhere on the board. Here, this costs 1 and you reduce crime by 2. So again, you pay $1, and this is your crime meter. In that particular case, since our crime started at 0, we would stay at 0. But if our crime was at 4, we'd go down to 2. Certain cards, here's a good example. This is a 2. So that has plus 2 crime. So if our crime were at 4, you cannot play this card. You cannot go off the map. So there's another limiting factor. So that's why you need the service buildings to kind of keep your pollution, traffic, and crime kind of in check. Same goes with employment. That is the character sign right there by my thumb. So that would lower that by 2. So that essentially means we don't have enough population to support the businesses there. If you were to end a milestone with that, you'd have to pay $2 extra. You can also see down here at the bottom, so this is the top, this is what you have to do regardless. And then down here is the benefit. So if you build this in a district that has a bus, you get an extra $4. So you play that card. Let's just say we had a bus station on the map. You would actually get to add this $4. And at the cost of that, you hurt your underemployment and increased crime. Here's another one here. Again, increased crime and lower electricity. So that, how I read that is that this building utilizes electricity and it's prone to criminal activity. Now this symbol here, this gray box, that counts for a district. And what a district is anything within these little boxes here that are separated out by the borders, the natural borders of the card, and the roads. Kind of divide this up as long as the border of the water. Now let's say you were to open this district now doubles in size. because it goes through, so it's both of these. Now this one can't grow here, so this district remains this size. Here we got one of the news cards, so every time traffic goes up, the newspaper reports it, which upsets people. So that's another thing. Once you draw this from the deck, it stays out there until another news item comes up or a different piece of news comes out to replace it. So those are a pain in the butt. They will halt the progress of the city. These are the unique buildings. They are really big pieces of cardboard. I didn't really feel like we got a great benefit from these because the districts are so small relative to the size of the actual cardboard building. So I wasn't a big fan of those. That was sort of last resort. And then these are policies. So these are like government policies. So we got a ban on soft drinks. It costs $3 to push it through, but you get one happiness for each medical facility you have in your city. Kind of getting back to city here. So you get these pieces. The yellow are the industrial, and you can see they're all Tetris style shapes. All cards can relate to any piece. So this one just requires it to be blue. Nothing else matters. So you could pick this shape, this shape, this shape, any of these shapes to fit that need. So we're always trying to, match up the corners just to maximize our space. Here you can go there. And this is kind of what one of my complaints were. It looks like this building can fit in there. If you kind of squeeze it, it blocks off a little bit of the road, hangs off a little bit off the edge. It's kind of unclear how close these buildings can get. Again, it's like it just barely hangs off the edge, but that is not allowed per the rule book. So you could try to squeeze a residential in there, and then you got to build this one over here. Let's see. These are two utility buildings. So they give you that one-time benefit of lowering the trash.
You can't have more than one utility.
Yeah, you can't have more than one utility in a single district. So that's another placing rule. I'm going to show you guys these special buildings, kind of give you an idea what I'm talking about. There is the Capitol building. There's the football stadium. So the football stadium gives you a benefit each time you add a residential zone there, but it takes up so much of the room. You're not going to have a ton of residential zones. You're not going to build much residential zones. Here, with this district being one, we can add it like this, and that would be fine. So that's kind of the buildings. Again, here's another really crazy Tetris piece, which is probably going to cost you more dead space. Here's the first player token. It is their mascot, so it's pretty cute. Here are the characters you can be. We've got here a lawyer. If you build an empty district, one happiness. If you end a milestone and there are no cards in the exchange pile, +2. We kind of touched about this a little bit in the gameplay. If you don't like your hand, you can choose to set aside a card in this exchange pile for $2, and you get to draw a new card. At the end of each milestone, it only costs you $1 instead of $2. Here we got an architect build a service building. It costs you less money. She's great. I like that character a lot. Here is the happiness tracker. The only vertical piece in the game. You can see it's got its little feet to stand up. Zoom this out just a little bit. And you got these little happiness smiley faces that move up, so you can kind of bank your happiness. If you got 10 points of happiness on the first round, you slide that up to 10. Say a second round you didn't do as good, you only got 5, then you move this side up to 5, and so it's 15 total. I like the art on that. I wish more of it was vertical. The other main component, I may not have had this in the shot. I apologize for that. Let me get this slid in. So this is the main board. As pollution goes up, this will tick up. Again, so here we got crime maxed out. We could not do, we could not build this building because it requires crime to go up 2. Our crime is already maxed out. There's nothing we can do. Now if we built this police station, kind of going back over this, I don't feel like this board was in the shot. I apologize for that. Then we could lower our crime 2. Then we could build that building that up 2 and go back up to 5. The very last milestone, this takes away from your total happiness, how far away they are from 0. Everything starts at 0. Again, so in this case we have excess room for trash, which is good. Our water is 0, which is fine. We're short on power, so we lose 1 happiness at the end of each milestone. Either underemployment or overemployment, both are bad, both cost you money. One of this game's ways to adjust difficulty is how much money you start off with. We played on the easiest settings, so it's $12, then it goes to 10, then it goes to 8, and that gets pretty tough. I mean, this, this is a small landfill, so this is one of the cheaper ones. It costs 3 money, so if you only start with 8, there goes almost half of it just in one go. Other buildings or zones will add money, so that's how you kind of can refill your town's bank account. Alright, so components, what do you give it?
Components, I'm actually going to give it just a slightly lower score of 7.5. I had a little bit of an issue with, first of all, the unique buildings were way too big. That was slightly irritating just because you have such a limited space, and then you're given this unique building, which, and perhaps that's intentional in the game. But as person playing the game, it was slightly frustrating. The other thing is that you're trying to fit pre-cut zones into squares, into a grid. And I just felt like they didn't always fit right. And then sometimes you would try to piece them together, kind of like you were saying with Tetris. You try to fit the blocks together, and sometimes they didn't fit together.
Yeah.
And that was a little frustrating at times. Because it is kind of delicate. You have to make sure that you lay them down just right so that they fit. And does this really fit? You can't really tell because the squares are just slightly off. But I do really enjoy that each of the components has a really nice picture on it that actually looks like you're looking down on that part of a city, like on a residential area or a commercial area.
I'm gonna agree with everything you said times 10. Components for me is a 2. I did not enjoy the components. To call a game Cities Skylines, in my head I'm thinking, Skyline, you see all the buildings up, and this game is completely flat. There's no, I understand it's about price point here, and so I'm going to kind of, if they had if the buildings had some verticality to them, maybe a little thinner plastic, you kind of build it together where it's coming up. I thought that would have been really neat. And if that's too expensive, maybe go with the blockage style, where it has a little grid and the squares kind of fit into it. Because to your point, it felt like the majority of the time we're trying to squeeze these pieces in, and even if you knew that I know these two fit together, you kind of had to force them in.
Kind of like two puzzle pieces that probably shouldn't fit together.
Right. It's like fitting into incorrect puzzle pieces, but they're close enough that with some muscle you can pop them in. Mm-hmm. And that didn't really jive with me. I thought, a game like Blockus that has this raised grid and squares that have pre-cut grooves, drop them in, there's no doubt. If it fits, it fits. Mm-hmm. If it doesn't, it doesn't. We were just constantly spinning and rotating. I'm like, well, is that touching the road?
Yeah.
Well, let's kind of slide this one over a little bit all the way. And it felt sloppy. If you tapped the board, everything went flying. There was no grip to it. And again, to call it Skylines and to have the most flat game, there's no, there's the only the scorecard is the only vertical thing in this entire game. It was just really uninspiring. I didn't enjoy the art. So components, maybe I need to wait for a deluxe version to come out and that can give me some of that vertical
or
display.
An expansion of some sort.
Yeah, or maybe a remastered version. I understand it would raise the price point maybe to a level they weren't comfortable with adding that much plastic.
Yeah.
But so overall,
I'm going to give it an 8.5.
8.5. That's pretty good.
Yeah, I did really like this game. I really like this game.
I know I kind of beat them up a little bit in components, but overall, I'm going to go with 7. I thought the gameplay was good, and I really felt the theme come through strong. And I feel like that was enough to overcome the component issue that I had. And I understand that everyone will agree.
So, would you play, display, or stay away?
I think so. Just to refresh everyone, play is a game that's going to hit the table as often as it can. Mm-hmm. Display is a game that you still keep, sits on your shelf more than hits the table, but you still enjoy it. Stay away means just leave that one in the store for someone else to buy.
Yeah.
For me, this is a display, and it's mainly that component issue I had with it. I still enjoy the game. I still look forward to playing it again, but I kind of want to see how another city building game kind of compares. Mm-hmm. So currently I'm at display. What are you?
I'm at play.
You're at play?
Yeah, I definitely want to play it again, and I'm excited to play it again. It's very reminiscent of SimCity for me. Mm-hmm. I've never played Cities Skylines on PS4.
Steam.
In Steam. I've never played it, and I didn't even actually know that it existed. So, but like I said, it is very reminiscent of SimCity for me, and I like the just how you can really build up different scenarios each time that you play, and I'm also determined to just do better and better each time. Yep. So with each play, like making the city better and better, and trying to really build a city that is I'm not sure what the highest level they said that a city
It
could be.
was 61.
61.
61 plus was the
Happiness.
tap, I think.
I think we got up to 43
Maybe something
on
like
one of
that.
our cities,
Yeah.
so not bad.
And then the other one failed city, and then 3 that we didn't lose, but we didn't.
We
There's
didn't
like
do
a
great.
red and green gradient scale. We had
Yeah.
3 reds, 1 green, and then 1 completely failed.
Yeah. So I guess that, you know, maybe that's just the I'm just determined to get back to it and try and make it better.
All right. Bring
So.
that same effort to Battletoads.
Yeah. My thumbs can only last so long in that.
Yeah. Well, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
When you say this title, you're going to have to wash your lisp.
I have to be careful with the way that I say my S's. I'm going to sound like a snake.
You're the biggest nerd I know.
Yeah.
Ready?